discuss the week's key midweek news next on Freedom. This is Our Time. I'm Mikhail Duranov. Hello? Russian occupation forces shelled the MENA community in the Chernihiv region. A 15-year-old girl was killed. Her parents were injured. The Russian Federation's army attacked the region with drones at 1 a.m. Fire engulfed a residential house and an outbuilding. Rescuers quickly extinguished the fire. Additionally, psychologists provided aid to 6 residents. Local authorities report that today is a day of mourning in the MENA community for the child. 2 people were injured as a result of a Russian military attack on the Dnipropetrovsk region. As reported by the head of the region's military administration, Alexander Ganja, high-rise buildings and several businesses were also damaged. 2 civilians in the Sumy region were wounded as a result of Russian shelling. According to the regional military administration, the occupiers hit the region with artillery, mortars, and attack drones. One of them struck the police department building in the city of Shostka. Over 40 law enforcement officers were injured there. The Russian army has again attacked civilian railway infrastructure. In the Sumy region, a Russian drone strike caused significant damage to a railway station building, a locomotive, and the railway tracks. Additionally, the invaders attacked infrastructure in the Mykolaiv region with a drone. A locomotive was damaged, but fortunately no one was hurt. In total, on the night of March 12th, the Russian army launched 94 attack drones, including Shahed, Gerbera, and Talmus types across Ukraine. Air defense units shot down or jammed 77 Russian drones using electronic warfare systems. Drone strikes were recorded at 11 locations, with debris from a downed drone falling at another. For the second day, Zaporizhzhia is clearing the aftermath of a Russian airstrike. Yesterday, the Russians attacked residential neighborhoods with guided aerial bombs. 12 residents were injured. Over 80 high-rise and private houses were damaged in 2 districts of the regional center. Rescuers and utility workers are on site at the strike locations. Details in our report.
The Russians attacked Zaporizhzhia on Wednesday afternoon. One of the aerial bombs exploded near a residential building. Windows were shattered here and the roof was torn off. Parked cars nearby were also damaged.
The roof's damaged, the shed's damaged, the windows are gone. There's a big hole in the gas pipe, but the guy's already fixed it. I was buying potatoes when the explosions happened, and then I came back and saw all of this. It's horrible.
In a nearby district, a guided bomb fell in a garden next to a private house. The explosion left a crater 5 meters deep. The house is half destroyed.
I don't know. They said the house has to be demolished. I don't know. They said the house has to be demolished. My parents are left without a home. Of course, I'm in shock. It's good that we're alive. They were in the other half of the house, which remained more or less intact.
District administration representatives are gathering information about the damage. About 100 residents have applied for compensation whose homes have been damaged.
As a result of a munitions strike, preliminary reports say it was a guided bomb. Private homes were damaged. These are blown-out windows, smashed roofs, and internal utilities.
Rescuers and utility workers have worked at the strike site for a second day. They're covering smashed roofs, boarding up windows with wooden panels, and clearing debris. Anastasia Lisova, Olef Pratikin, Boris Yakovenko from Zaporizhzhia for Freedom TV channel.
"128 combat engagements were recorded on the front line over the past 24 hours. As reported by the General Staff of the AFU, the Ukrainian military repelled 6 Russian attacks in the Lyman direction and 7 in the Slovyansk direction. The situation remains difficult in 3 sectors of the front. In the Huliai-Pol bridgehead, defense forces repelled 21 attacks by Russian occupiers. 22 assaults were repelled in the Kostiantinovka direction, and another 24 in the Pokrovsk direction. Military experts note that due to significant losses, Russian troops have already used even the resources intended for further offensives.
Russian generals there, the general staff, are running to the Kremlin to ask Putin for additional resources. Putin, at these annual reporting and election meetings of the Ministry of Defense, at the Ministry of Defense Board, says every time, "You're doing great, of course, but I won't give you any resources. Manage with what you have." Well, that is basically how that unique wave-like motion actually works in practice. The overall trajectory of the war will likely continue in this way.
Nearly 800 Russian occupiers were eliminated by Ukraine's defense forces over the past 24 hours. According to the general staff of the AFU, the total combat losses of the Russian army since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine have already exceeded 1,276,000 soldiers. In addition, Ukrainian defenders destroyed 3 tanks, 20 armored combat vehicles, more than 50 artillery systems, and over 200 units of enemy motor vehicles. On the night of March 12th, units of the Unmanned Systems Forces hit a number of strategic Russian targets. Specifically, using Ukrainian-made FPV drones, an S-300 SAM launcher was destroyed near the village of Borovenki in the Luhansk region, as well as a train with fuel and lubricants, an ammunition depot, and an enemy logistics hub. Near the settlement of Bryansk in the Zaporizhzhia region, an invader's Tor SAM system was blown up. In addition, a comprehensive strike was carried out on the facilities of the Russian Rubicon unit. The commander of the AFU Unmanned Systems Forces shared the details.
A temporary deployment point, warehouses, a repair base, and a workshop were blown up in 4 settlements at once. Settlements in the temporarily occupied territories of the Zaporizhzhia region. At the same time, the Unmanned Systems Forces are carrying out daily deep strikes on targets within the Russian Federation. Between March 1st and 12th alone, 19 air defense elements of the Russian army were destroyed. Robert Majar Bravdi, commander of the AFU Unmanned Systems Forces, on Facebook.
The Security Service of Ukraine struck one of the largest oil hubs in southern Russia. In the Krasnodar region, the Tikhoretsk oil pumping station was hit. A large oil depot and terminal are located there, playing a vital role in the logistics of Russian fuel and oil products. A direct hit on the facility was recorded, followed by a massive fire. Such systematic SBU, special operations, cause supply disruptions, hinder the transport of oil products to ports, and force the Russian Federation to change its logistics routes. This also weakens both Russia's military capabilities and its economic capacity to wage war against Ukraine. The Kremlin is exaggerating Russian advances on the front by at least double. This is the conclusion reached by analysts from the Institute for the Study of War. And this is despite the recent liberation of significant territory in southern Ukraine by Ukrainian troops. In fact, the advances of the Ukrainian Defense Forces actually exceeded the Russian ones in February of this year. The Institute's specialists emphasize. More on this in our next report.
Panic has broken out in Russian social media groups. Propagandists are reporting en masse that the Russian army has lost control over Kupiansk and that units trying to dig in there are surrounded. This is despite the victorious reports from the Kremlin command. As of March 7th, about 20 Russians remained in several buildings in the central part of Kupiansk. Viktor Tregobov, head of the communications department of the Joint Forces grouping, shared this information. In the Kupiansk direction, attempts by the invaders to penetrate closer to the city were recorded, but they were stopped by Ukrainian forces.
The Defense Forces bridgehead east of the city is also holding. It's holding firm. Russian offensive attempts there are also chaotic and unsuccessful. Viktor Tregobov, head of the communications department of the Joint Forces grouping on the United News Marathon.
The commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, stated that in 1 month, Ukrainian troops regained control over more territory than the Russian army managed to seize in the same period. According to him, the defense forces are trying to seize the operational initiative and impose their own rules of engagement on the enemy. The Ukrainian military is conducting active offensive operations in certain sectors of the front in the Donetsk region. General Syrsky visited the units and subdivisions of the Ukrainian defenders, and he noted that despite the constant attempts of the Russian occupiers to penetrate deep into the Ukrainian defense, the AFU continues to hold positions and counterattack.
The enemy is suffering significant, sometimes critical losses in manpower and equipment. Ukrainian units are demonstrating high efficiency by utilizing drone systems, artillery, and remote mining, steadily and systematically diminishing the combat potential of Russian troops while successfully undermining and disrupting their offensive plans.
Vladimir Putin previously announced plans to capture the entire territory of the Donetsk region by the end of last year. However, by the beginning of March 2026, this goal remains as distant as it was several months ago. According to OSINT analysts, the advance of the aggressor country's army has effectively stopped. From February 23rd to March 1st, Russia lost 16 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy also noted the successful counteroffensive actions of the AFU.
In the south of our country, over the last month and a half, they have carried out a number of important defensive actions, and in some directions, offensive ones. The actions were exclusively aimed at disrupting the plans of the Russian Federation. We believe it was quite successful. We regained control over approximately 435 square kilometers.
The Ukrainian army is also successfully hitting strategically important targets of the Russian military-industrial complex. The General Staff of the AFU confirmed a strike on a defense plant in Bryansk with Storm Shadow missiles. Russian authorities are not commenting on the strike on the military-industrial complex enterprise, the Chernihiv microelectronics plant. It produces control systems for all types of missiles in the Russian army's arsenal, specifically for Iskanders. The commander-in-chief of the AFU reported on the operation to the president of Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelenskyy called such strikes a completely fair response to the aggressor.
Our warriors struck one of the important Russian military plants in Bryansk. This plant produced electronics, components for Russian missiles. We are defending ourselves. Russia has long had the opportunity to end this war, which it started itself.
During January and February, the Ukrainian Defense Forces struck 3 large military-industrial complex enterprises of the Russian Federation, as well as one of the key missile ranges and 2 large arsenals. This was reported by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. According to the agency, this allows for a reduction in the enemy's capacity to produce and store weapons, as well as weakening its ability to strike peaceful Ukrainian cities with missiles and drones. Victoria Chistikuna for the Freedom TV channel.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy has arrived for an official visit to Romania. In Bucharest, the president has already met with his colleague, Nikos Ordan, and the head of the Ukrainian state also has a dialogue planned with Prime Minister Ely Balazhin. In addition, the president will also visit an F-16 pilot training center, according to his press service. I should note that this is actually Volodymyr Zelenskyy's second official visit to Romania. The first one took place back in October of 2023. At that time, the leaders of the two countries signed an agreement on a strategic partnership between Romania and Ukraine.